Finbar, the city's most feared hitman, hunts down criminals who thought they could escape his wrath. He makes sure they never come back. In 1974, in a small town in Northern Ireland, two men from a mafia crew walk into a local bar. What they don't realize is that Doran, a notorious woman, along with her brother Curtis, are lurking nearby, planning something dangerous. Seamus and Conan quietly place a bomb near the bar, then slip away unnoticed. Moments later, Doran spots a group of kids playing too close to the rigged car. She yells for them to move, but it's too late. The bomb detonates, killing both the mafia members and the children in a devastating blast. After the explosion, Doran, Curtis, Conan, and Seamus quickly jump into a getaway car and flee the scene. Meanwhile, we meet Finbar, showing off his shooting skills in a practice session with Sheriff Vincent, a skilled marksman. Later, he and Vincent discuss the rising crime in town, a real mess that seems to need handling. That night, Finbar arrives at a busy bar, carrying a photo with someone's face circled. The bar announcer introduces Bart, a renowned singer who captivates the crowd. The circled face in Finbar's photo? It's Bart's. After the show, Finbar drives to a remote spot in the woods and opens his trunk, revealing Bart, trapped and clutching a shotgun. Finbar forces Bart to a hillside, hands him a shovel, and orders him to dig. Bart realizes he's in a graveyard of Finbar's previous victims. He nervously asks how many people Finbar has killed, but Finbar stays silent. In a final moment, Bart opens up about his troubled past, saying he's changed over the years. Finbar listens but coldly finishes the job, burying Bart and planting a tree over the grave as a dark reminder. It's clear now, Finbar is a hitman, taking out targets for money. Later, he stops by his manager Robert's house, where Robert's wife, Josie, warmly welcomes him, promising to make his favorite meal. Kevin, a new recruit, grabs bread from Josie's basket, irritating Finbar. Classic impatience from the younger generation. Finbar meets with Robert, confirming the job's done, and catches a glimpse of Kevin driving off in his car. Suddenly, Finbar suggests that Robert consider passing future contracts to Kevin instead. He then opens up about his own dark journey since losing his wife, expressing a desire to leave the killing behind and start fresh. Finbar recalls how his wife had always wanted him to lead a life that helped others. Robert, taken aback, asks about his plans, and Finbar shares that he wants to farm, to grow things in his own garden. Robert respects his choice, hands over his final payment, and wishes him the best. The next day, Finbar sets out on his new path, clearing a field and heading into town to buy seeds. Upon returning, he visits his kind neighbor Rita, who invites him for dinner, excited about his farming ambitions. She asks about his cooking, playfully comparing it to his late wife's skills. Later, Finbar walks to a nearby bridge and spots a young girl, Moya, fishing with a tangled line. He offers her his handkerchief to help manage the nylon. Moya explains she's trying to catch her own dinner, but in the process, accidentally drops her food box into the water. Finbar notices some scars on her neck, but she quickly hides them and dashes off. Later, Finbar meets Moya's mother, Sinead, at her bartending job, apologizing for the lost lunchbox and taking responsibility for the mishap. As he walks Moya home, her uncle Curtis, one of the men involved in the earlier bombing, looms nearby. Finbar senses danger in Curtis's presence. The next day, he brings Moya a basket of food, handing it to Sinead. Later, he finds Moya looking worried and discreetly slips her a bullet, trying to open up a conversation, but she stays silent. When Curtis appears, Moya quickly retreats inside. Curtis then asks Sinead for food and with a thinly veiled threat hints at Finbar's intentions, implying he's trouble. After Curtis leaves, Finbar, deeply worried, meets with Robert and shows him the bullet, asking for support in dealing with Curtis, fearing what he might do to Moya. But Robert, uninterested, tells him he's on his own. Later, Finbar keeps a close watch on Curtis, planning his next move. When Curtis heads home, Finbar offers him a ride, and Curtis, trying to be friendly, accepts. During the drive, Finbar reminisces about his passion for shooting, asking Curtis about his own experience with firearms. Finbar pulls over, opens the trunk, and shows Curtis an impressive firearm. Then, without warning, he knocks Curtis out and tosses him into the trunk. He drives deep into the woods, ready to settle things. But Curtis regains consciousness, fights back, and manages to break free, running into the forest. Finbar quickly draws his gun and shoots Curtis in the leg, stopping him in his tracks. Just then, Kevin appears, explaining that Robert sent him to keep an eye on Finbar. After a tense standoff, they manage to subdue Curtis, burying him together before unwinding at a nearby bar. While chatting, Kevin expresses admiration for Finbar, admitting he's a fan of his work. He reveals that he sometimes kills for cash, but doubts he'll ever match Finbar's count. This irks Finbar, who warns him that taking a life isn't something to joke about, and if he hears Kevin laughing about death, there will be consequences. 2 days after Curtis's disappearance, Doran grows concerned. She begins searching and eventually asks Shun about Curtis. Shun hasn't seen him, and when Doran's frustration flares, she grabs Shun by the neck. Next, she visits Robert's house to press him for information. When she mentions Curtis, Robert feigns ignorance, claiming his men are busy. Just as Doran is about to leave, she notices a bullet on the floor matching her gun. Furious, she points her weapon at Robert, demanding answers. He confesses that Curtis is dead, but insists he wasn't involved, revealing that Finbar killed Curtis days ago. Enraged, Doran shoots Robert, killing him instantly, and vows to hunt down Curtis's killer. Later, Finbar and Kevin hear about Robert's death from Josie. Finbar tries to console her, promising to handle the situation, but Josie warns him about a woman aggressively asking around about Curtis, putting the men on high alert. They quickly destroy any paperwork linked to their past and future activities, and Finbar advises Josie to contact the police. Meanwhile, Doran persuades Siamis to impersonate Finbar's nephew at a local store. The shopkeeper believes the act and provides them with Finbar's address. As Siamis reaches Finbar's place, he encounters Sheriff Vincent, who's suspicious of Siamis's sudden presence in town. The group arrives at Finbar's house and stumbles upon old war photos, reminiscing on the place's history. Coincidentally, Finbar is on his way home with Kevin and notices lights on inside, sensing something's amiss. He signals Kevin to pull over, and they quietly wait nearby. As they watch, Kevin shares the story of how a bar fight led to his job with Robert. The next morning, Doran, furious that Finbar didn't return home, takes her frustration out on his car parked outside. Kevin almost pulls his gun, but Finbar restrains him. Just then, Rita steps outside, and Doran confronts her, demanding Finbar's whereabouts. When Rita fires back with a hurtful remark, Doran punches her, knocking her out. After Doran leaves, Finbar and Kevin rush Rita inside, where Finbar calls for medical help, keeping it anonymous. Later, at Kevin's place, Finbar notices a burned newspaper detailing the Belfast bombing, sparking his curiosity. He visits a store, buys the same paper, and learns Doran's crew is the prime suspect. Determined to confront them, Finbar tracks down their hideout, filled with explosives, before heading to a football match where Doran and her gang are. During the game, Conan spots their names and photos in the paper, visibly shaken. He suggests fleeing, but Doran is fixated on avenging her brother. Finbar spots Doran at the match, discreetly follows her to the restroom, but she catches him off guard, aiming her gun at him. Finbar insists he wasn't the one who killed her brother, but claims to know who did. Doran demands a name, and Finbar agrees to bring the person to a bar that evening, warning that if he fails, she'll blow the place up. Later, Finbar tells Kevin about the setup, explaining he must confront Doran. Kevin, eager to be part of something big, feels fired up. That evening, as they meet outside the bar, Finbar hands Kevin a hefty stack of cash instead of a gun, encouraging him to start anew. The gesture leaves Kevin stunned, never having experienced such kindness. Finbar heads into the bar alone. Meanwhile, Conan, carrying a suspicious bag, approaches the building, and Sheriff Vincent, nearby, notices Siamis by a damaged car. Shortly after, Vincent discovers the bomb inside Conan's bag. Inside the bar, Finbar and Doran chat briefly before he suggests moving to the back to talk. Just as tensions peak, Kevin strides in, casually dropping Doran's name, catching her off guard. When she brushes him off, he smirks and admits he's the one who killed her brother. Enraged, Doran immediately shoots him in the stomach, triggering utter chaos as bar patrons scatter for cover. Meanwhile, Sheriff Vincent uncovers the bomb in Conan's bag, but before he can act, Siamis intervenes, throwing the situation into deeper turmoil. Amidst the bedlam, a wounded Kevin musters enough strength to fire back, shooting Doran. At the same time, Finbar seizes the moment to take down Conan. The brawl escalates as Finbar overpowers Siamis, stopping him from detonating the bomb in a brutal struggle. Though seriously hurt, Kevin urges Finbar to take the money and make a new start in California. But in a shocking twist, Doran, barely alive, delivers a fatal shot to Kevin, killing him instantly. Overcome with fury, Finbar charges at Doran, but Conan blocks his path, forcing Finbar to fight him off, ending Conan's interference once and for all. Doran, now barely standing, stumbles out of the bar, with Finbar following her to a nearby church. In a quiet, solemn moment, she confesses her remorse, asking Finbar to end her life as atonement. Acknowledging the darkness they both carry, he hesitates, but ultimately agrees. Doran succumbs to her wounds shortly after, and Finbar buries her in a peaceful spot in the woods, marking her grave with a tree as a tribute. In the closing moments, Finbar returns to Rita, seeking her forgiveness for keeping his past hidden. She assures him he owes no explanations. With newfound resolve, Finbar thanks her and sets off, ready to pursue a fresh beginning. Thanks for watching.